Are Fujifilm cameras good enough for professionals? Lots of people, including myself, have wondered if the Fujifilm APS-C lineup is good enough for professional work. In fact, even though I've loved the retro styling, the intuitive controls, and the compact size of Fujifilm for a long time, I was a little nervous that Fuji wouldn't quite hold up to professional client work. That it was too much of a toy. That APS-C size image sensors are just too inferior to present to clients. That is, until I picked one up at the beginning of 2023. Hi, I'm Caleb. I'm a boudoir photographer based in Bend, Oregon. And I've been one of those dirty Canon fanboys for as long as I can remember. My first real camera was a Canon 20D that I bought in high school. And since then, I've spent the majority of my photo and video career on Canon cameras. My most recent camera was a Canon EOS R that I picked up in 2019 and it just shot like a dream. I built my full-time six-figure business with that camera. And in fact, my highest viewed video on this YouTube channel is whether or not the Canon EOS R was still good to use in 2022, which now obviously was a while ago. But I'd always kind of wanted to pick up a Fuji just because they're kind of fun and kind of cute. And some of the images that I saw people getting on social media from them were just amazing. So earlier in 2023, I think about March, I picked up a Fuji X-T3, a 23mm f2, and a 56mm f1.2 from Focal Point Photo in Dallas, Oregon. Not sponsored, but I genuinely love that store. Now I bought my Fuji mostly for kind of fun and to play around with those like film simulations. And then the unspeakable happened. After around 450,000 photos, the shutter on my EOS R died. During, well, near the end of a client shoot. And I had another shoot booked the next day. Clearly not enough time to rent a backup body. So I had to use my Fuji for the first time for a full shoot, and I have to say, I was kind of hooked. So let's talk about 3 reasons why I definitely think Fujifilm cameras are good enough for professionals. Number 1 is style. I know, this probably shouldn't be reason number 1, but in my particular style of photography, aesthetics really do matter. And honestly, it is kind of a big deal. My clients are not the type of people who spend much time in front of cameras. My client base is working mothers, women in their 20s reclaiming their identity after a really bad breakup, partners doing a shoot for their significant other, and couples who are essentially doing a trust exercise with each other. So having a giant camera like my EOS R with the battery grip, and an even bigger lens, which by the way, my main lens, my Samyang 85 f1.4, is not here right now, because it happens to be up in Canada with the fellas from Petapixel, who may be using it for a review. More on that later. But I found that having a giant camera with a giant lens kind of ends up being a little intimidating to my clients. But my smaller, cuter, more stylish Fujifilm is way less intimidating. And it's just another little conversation piece that we can talk about during the shoot. They love how it looks so retro, and often they'll say, oh, are we shooting film for the whole shoot? Or, oh, my grandpa had a camera that looked just like that. The size and the styling really helps to disarm my clients. And since literally the majority of my job as a boudoir photographer is to ensure that my clients are comfortable and at ease, anything that can help that process is a win in my book. Number 2 is image quality. Now my main reservation about going from full frame to APS-C was that the image quality was gonna suffer or lack in some way. But honestly, so far I don't find that really to be the case at all. I genuinely love the files and the images that I get out of my Fuji. And both my lenses for Fuji have such character and sharpness and definition to them. Now do I wish it was full frame? Yeah, sure. Do I miss full frame from time to time? Yeah, definitely. I am definitely a bokeh boy. I love blurry backgrounds, and I do kind of miss when like my f1.4 would actually be like a real f1.4. But with the right lighting and the right lenses, the images that come out of this camera are just fantastic. My 23mm has almost this kind of bloomy characteristic on the highlights. My 56mm has almost kind of a swirly bokeh pattern to it in the background. And there's a lot of hay that's been made about how like the X-Trans sensors kind of get like wormy if you put too much sharpening on them. But you get kind of used to that, and after you work with the files a bit, you learn how to avoid that. And so I honestly don't see it anymore. And also I think one of the recent Lightroom updates fixed that. I don't have any evidence for that, and I haven't looked in like the notes or anything of the releases, but ever since one of the updates, I don't see like the wormy kind of issue at all, period, anymore. And I love pixel peeping. I love zooming into 300%. Overall image quality for my X-T3 is just great. And yeah, sometimes I do miss full frame. There definitely is a full frame look, and I do think that you get better ISO performance and more dynamic range with full frame. But I genuinely think that the APS-C tech has caught up, and there aren't really a ton of compelling reasons to avoid APS-C anymore. I can't speak for other brands of APS-C cameras, although I do have a friend with a Canon R7 who loves the pictures that she gets with it. She does a lot of bird stuff, so that camera really makes sense for her. But at the end of the day, for the kind of work that I do, these pictures that come out of this camera are just perfect, and my clients love them. Number 3, controls and customizability. I rarely use like standard assigned buttons. I love being able to map functions to different buttons on the camera. Like for instance, this front button right here, I have it set to review images. So instead of pushing the playback button clear over here, I can just use one hand and use my pointer finger to bring up a photo I just shot. And you can literally remap like almost every single button on here. And there are a lot of buttons and dials on Fuji cameras. So once you get everything mapped where you like it, it's just kind of like muscle memory heaven. Honestly, now I can operate this camera pretty much fully without ever looking at it. So I know assignable buttons aren't necessarily for everybody, but I really think that is a nice professional touch that makes it easier for people who are used to kind of more advanced cameras to use. Now, of course, it all depends on what camera you get. Fuji has a really wide lineup right now. I think maybe the X-T3 is probably the oldest camera that I'd go with, because the X-T3 really was kind of like a quantum leap forward in all of their technology. And even though the internet loves them, I don't think that I would use a Fuji X100 as my only camera as a professional. I do wish that I had one of those cameras, and I would use it in professional settings, but having the ability obviously to change focal length is super important. So can a professional photographer use a Fujifilm camera for professional work? I think so. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And follow me over on TikTok at caleb.takes.photos. I'm also on Instagram and Threads at calebtakesphotos. And if you're interested in my photography and want to support that, join our community over on Patreon. The link's below. Anyway, let's continue this conversation in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Perfect. That's so cool. Yeah, turn your face a little straighter. Yeah, or back towards me a little bit. Yeah, perfect. And then to your right, just a little bit more with your face. You're right. Yep, back this way just a